So we've talked about the 3 steps that we do beforehand. The making sure you have quantum coherence, making sure there's no neurogenic inflammation, and making sure your vagus nerve isn't reacting to something in the environment, which, by the way, I mentioned a second ago, like 90% of the population is going to have this going on actively, one of these things. I used to do I used to have an assessment, the nervous system assessment, and it actually only, so out of these data points, there's about maybe 10 data points that actually can fit into all 3 of those categories. About 10 data points that we're looking for to see, do you have something going on here that's going to make your testing inaccurate from like a physiological standpoint. Out of those 10 data points, the assessment only even looked at 3 that were the most common. So quantum coherence, the neurogenic switching that could be caused by sleep issues and EMF in the environment. And I think also we looked at hormonal switching. This would be from a hormonal standpoint, like, do you have estrogen dominance? Is it your time of the month? Are you pregnant? It doesn't have to be like pathology, but it's some sort of hormonal shift that is causing nervous system inflammation. Just, it could just be a drastic shift that's causing inflammation. The inflammation might not be like pathological. But out of just those 3 out of 10 data points, I would say, looking at the data from the quiz, and thousands of people took this quiz, 99% of people failed, meaning 99% of people could not pass all 3 of those checks, and there's actually 10. So it's probably 100% of people would not have passed, meaning 100% of people could have been getting inaccurate self-muscle testing answers without knowing it. Now, do some people have like some psychic connection that can override that level of like physiological, like disconnection or inflammation and still get accurate answers? Maybe, but not 100% of the time. Even if you have like the best connection in the world to some sort of quantum realm, like you can't say that you're going to be accurate based off of, that data that I've seen. And then also the reason from a scientific standpoint is when you have nervous system inflammation, your proprioception is scrambled. So you can't tell the difference subconsciously between up and down, left and right, front and back. So if backwards is your yes, this is a proprioceptive indicator that you have neurogenic inflammation, nervous system inflammation that's making your muscle testing inaccurate. So can you just flip-flop it and say like 100% of the time, like, well, yeah, my backwards just means yes? No, you can't say that. Your body is confused. You can't just like try to adapt your muscle testing to that state of confusion. If you found us through Instagram, through any of our accounts, this is stuff you've probably seen us demo, and then you were like, wait, what? This has been a long time coming, basically, because the most common questions we get under our videos is like, wait a second, why did that backwards mean yes if everybody's forward is supposed to be yes? Or the opposite. Well, some people's backwards is yes. So we get a lot of these questions. One of the most popular things is probably also like the false negative thing. Like we get some of the things that like are the most healing for the most people across the board too, like will show up as a no. If you are doing like your standard self-muscle testing, like they will show up as a no, and you're gonna be like going around in a loop, taking something like supplement-wise, taking something that isn't as helpful as the thing that you got a no to. Like Humic acid is one of the things that like so many people get a no to until they do it the way that we teach it, and then they actually get a yes.
It's so true. I mean, it happens all the time with just random things. But I think you
Yeah.
made a really good point in the beginning where when we're testing, we have to have a certain stance for our sway to make sure that the weight of our body is the exact same every time we test so that we get an accurate sway forward or an accurate sway backwards. And when
Yeah.
you're getting a no, you can be your core is weakening on the way back. But
Yeah.
that weakening can also mean that's a very healing thing for the body. Different hand gestures that we use in order to be able to tell us, is that actually stressing my body out? Or am I now just so relaxed that I'm in this healing state that I have to have this?
Yes, and some people are going to need to do this more than others. I had a client like either yesterday or day before yesterday where it was like we needed to do this for every single thing that she was testing because she was getting no's until we did it. And even sometimes like in my one-on-one, like if they're swaying through their body, I'll I'll have to do it on my end. Like I'll do the hand gesture on my end and then like it will actually catalyze the sway. Like they'll be standing there and they can't get an answer. And that's another comment we get a lot is like, what if you don't have a sway? Like I'll have people who are skilled and advanced in their own way at self muscle testing, and they'll just be standing there with no sway until I add this modifier and then they get the forward sway. Or they got a backward sway and I have to add it on my side and retest, and then they get a forward sway. And you go through these cycles too. Like I'll be in a cycle where my body really just can't handle more aggressive forms of healing. And everything I test has to be with this modifier. Like I literally will just get a no to everything.
It's so true. And some people are just like that in general. You and I are very different. Like
Mm-hmm.
in general, you need the more softer healing things, whereas I need the stronger things. And we also
Yes.
have ways for testing for that, right? Let's take a quick break because we have something for you that could completely change the way you look at food sensitivities. If you've ever felt frustrated trying to figure out why some foods leave you bloated, foggy, or just not feeling yourself, we created a free PDF called Freedom from Food Sensitivities. This is not your standard elimination diet or cookie cutter food list. It's based off of our advanced self muscle testing method, the same method we use to help women pinpoint the exact foods, forms, and even timing of those foods that their bodies can truly handle. So if you're ready to stop guessing and finally ready to start trusting your body's signals, click the link in the show notes below and we'll send it straight to your inbox.
You have to know, you have to be a good steward of the limitations. And I think that's the biggest difference between what we've developed and researched and what we teach for self muscle testing versus what you're going to learn literally anywhere else for self muscle testing. And I hate to say it that way because there's like everybody has something that they're bringing to the table, like everybody is bringing a new perspective. And if you like, when you muscle test, if you want to use a pendulum, if you want to use your body as a pendulum, like whatever you're doing, like that's great. But the difference between all of those methods and what we teach is that we are hyper focused on the limitations. And we want to make sure that we don't just have as few limitations as possible, but that we're making you aware of the possible limitations and like what needs to be, like what you need to do to be aware of your own limitations and accuracy, and then what you need to do to specifically correct your own limitations and accuracy. It's not just a conversation of like, no, self muscle testing is accurate. It's like, no, it's not, but we're going to show you how it can be.
So, okay, can you tell us what some of those limitations are?
For self muscle testing specifically,
Yes.
okay. Well, your question asking is probably the biggest limitation that I see, is that people don't know what question to ask, or they think they've asked the right question and they just don't realize that they haven't, or they're trying to hold two different questions in their mind at the same time. And they think it's the same question, but really, one way that they're phrasing it, the answer would be no. And the other way they're phrasing it, the answer would be yes. And they're just not clear. They're not getting clear on that before they test. So, like, we teach form, combination, timing, and amount for specifically for foods. You can use it for other things as well. You can use it for anything, but we have a slightly different method for supplements because, like Kayleen mentioned, it's not just about what is the most relaxing for you. For some people, we need to know what is the most like directly and actively healing thing that you can do. And the sway testing won't tell you that. The sway testing won't differentiate that. But we have an O-ring that we can do that does. It's not the O-ring you're going to find like on YouTube or anywhere else. This is actually something that Kayleen first saw in person with a muscle testing practitioner. And then we've just sort of like iterated off of that. But when you're asking a question, and like, for example, let's say you want to know if a food is going to cause bloating. So you might just be the kind of muscle tester that asks yes or no questions, and maybe you're even holding the food in your hand and you're, looking for a forward sway versus a backward sway. If you are wondering, is this food going to cause me bloating? But you're also wondering, can I eat this without being bloated? How in the world do you know what your answer was? It sounds crazy, but that's one of the most common questions I get. Like, what was I getting an answer to? I was thinking different things, different possibilities. Well, you have to set the intention. You have to actually just ask one thing, one possible question. And there's a way to formulate your question that's better than some other ways that you could formulate it. Are you trying to exclude certain possibilities, or are you trying to include certain possibilities? And that's part of what we teach. But the real issue with the question asking is that you probably want to remove it altogether. You probably want to stop asking questions with words, basically. And so some people may not ask questions with words. They may just hold something in their hand and see if, forward means they take it or eat it. Backwards means they don't take it, they don't eat it. And that's a good first step, but you actually need to be adding modifiers to the question. And honestly, the most accurate way to muscle test is correlation. It's not forward means I should take it, backwards means I shouldn't take it. It's how many data points can we correlate together and then make an informed decision based off of our sway. And the way that we correlate data points is the first data point gives you a sway. It doesn't matter which direction. Then you add a data point, it either gives you the same direction sway or it reverses it. If it's the same direction sway, when you add the second data point, there's no correlation. If you reverse that sway with the second data point addition, then there's a correlation. And then you have to either keep going with new data points and new, stringing these correlations together, which is pretty advanced, or you need to use your logic and figure out from there what that correlation might mean. And I think that's also one of the biggest things that people don't realize about muscle testing is that it is clinical intuition and just intuition in general, but it's not the opposite of logic either. You have to have logic, but logic is just the foundation. You add intuition because that's a higher form of decision making, but it doesn't exist without logic. You cannot interpret your intuition without logic. It's just that oftentimes logic is not, when we think of logic, we're actually not thinking about being logical. We're thinking about letting our own bias cloud our judgment and then calling it logic. Does that make sense?
Yes, it totally does. And when you were talking about like asking questions as a limitation, I was going to say that's why I love this method so much, is because the correlation part where we're just holding something in our field, in our hand or in our mind, you're only thinking about one thing and then you're making these correlations and it's giving you quite a bit of data points to get an answer that will work for you. The
You can get
questions
so
can
much
just
data.
get really tricky and you're holding too much in your brain and then it's like I don't know where I'm at now.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
for me it's way easier to do any type of correlation. Like that's if
Yeah.
I can do a type of correlation, I will go there all day long versus asking the questions. You have to
Yes.
ask questions eventually.
It's true. But if you found our work, or if you just found self muscle testing in general because of a history of chronic illness, you have brain fog. Like, let's just call it what it is. We all get brain fog. And if you're relying, even if you don't have brain fog, if you're relying on your mental question asking, you will exhaust your energetic resources very quickly into your muscle testing session, and then you're going to start getting wonky answers essentially. And there are other reasons why your answers could stop being accurate in the middle of a session, but we also, again, like, that's a limitation, and we teach you how to see it and what to do to fix it. So, like, pretty much anything you can come up with, it's like, oh, but this happens sometimes and that happens sometimes. It's like, yes, those are limitations. Here's how you know when it's happening, and here's what you do to accommodate for it so that you can still get accurate answers.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So we've talked about quantum coherence, neurogenic switching. We've talked about.
Should we talk more about quantum coherence? Do you want to give like a deeper explanation of like what that actually is?
Yeah. So when we're talking about quantum coherence, we're talking more on the level of our light body. So, right, like you protrude light out of your body and your cells talk to each other out here. And what we really want is a really clear cut light coherence from the body. It should look like laser beams coming out of the body. But with pathology, with different illnesses, et cetera, that quantum coherence can become jumbled, or it can be like a flashlight protruding out versus a laser beam, right?
Mm.
So that light is very different. You're getting diffused light versus strict light. And when that happens, our cells aren't talking to each other correctly anymore. And that can also give us wonky answers. That is like when somebody is swaying backwards and they, but their yes should really be a forwards. You probably have some sort of quantum coherence issue going on.
It's extremely common.
So we teach you right off the bat to clean that up and fix that before we can get any other answers. Otherwise, who knows what you're going to get. It's going to be wonky.
Should I stand up and like demo something?
Yeah, let's do it.
What should I demo? People like a false negative demo, or
What do you have? Do you have anything that you can test right near you? A supplement or something?
I actually have some. We could
Oh
do
yeah,
some
let's do that.
double-blinded
Yeah, let's
testing.
do that. These are our favorite herbs that we love
Mhm.
to use. They're esoteric herbs. We like to test with vials or numbers because you can be double blinded. You won't have any idea what you're testing. And yep, those are little vials with herbs in each one of them. There's a number on the top, but we can't tell you what that number is unless we look it up.
This is just one of the test kits that we might use, and we can also just use a paper catalog with these numbers on it instead. But this is kind of like this is where I got my start muscle testing, like self muscle testing, and it's like tried and true. And we've tried all kinds of different test kits, all different types of herbs, and we also hear that all the time, like, oh yeah, I've tried herbs and it just didn't like get to the, didn't really move the needle. It's like, no, This is different. We've tried everything and still come back to this. So that's a whole different podcast episode in itself. But should I clean the field up before I test, or should I just, you know, okay.
Yeah.
So,
See what that looks like.
okay. All right. So pretty much all of these points, there's a way to test, and you can do kind of like a pre-test, clean it up, then do a post-test. So you can actually see how you've cleaned the field up in real time, but we're just going to do the quick and dirty. So we're going to start with quantum coherence. And there's different levels and degrees of like quantum coherence. Like I'm going to show you kind of overall quantum coherence, which is like heart-brain coherence, or even probably more specifically thymus pineal quantum coherence, which we can talk about in a second. But each of your organs, every part of your body has its own light field, its own toroidal field, which is, you know, your electromagnetic field. But this is the sort of like the main control center. So for this, we tap with a 40 hertz pulse frequency while we create a sound with our mouth, which is probably somewhere around like 330 hertz. So we're doing essentially like kymatics, essentially like sound, like a sound healing. It only takes about 15 seconds. And the 40 hertz pulse frequency is the key. It's the pulse. It's the tapping that creates the pulse frequency in the sound that has like a reconnection quality to it. And that's pretty well documented in the research as well. And you'll see me sway as I do this. You don't have to sway when you do it, but it just lets you know like when you're finished, basically. Or you can just count to 15 in your head. But 40 hertz pulsing is about 4 pulses per second. So 4 taps per second. So it's really fast. It's like almost like a vibration. Okay, so we'll go into that detail, go into that later somewhere else in more detail. The next pulse frequency we're going to do is 10 hertz pulse frequency. It's much slower. And this is to calm the nervous system inflammation. So 10 hertz is like 1 pulse per second, basically. This one I won't do the swaying because we pretty much know you want to keep it around 30 seconds total, and there's 10 points. So it's going to be about 3 taps per point. And then the last thing we want to do is we do a little vagus nerve stimulation. You have 2 vagus nerve bundles sort of below your ear, behind your jaw on either side, just for about 30 seconds. We just want to gently massage this area. And again, like vagus nerve stimulation is pretty well documented in the research. We're not doing anything woo-woo here. Like this is all documented in the research through, you know, different methods and procedures, and we have all of that information actually aggregated and can share it with you eventually when we share it in our courses, but we can share it in like the form of a research paper or a review paper. Okay, so we don't have to test all of these, but let's just go until we find a false negative. So when you have the right form, which is a soft knee, engaged core, really engaged pelvic floor, really. It's kind of hard to see because I'm wearing baggy clothes, but for most people, like you kind of stand like with a sort of hyperextended like lumbar spine. For most people, engaging your core actually looks like you're kind of rolling your hips under a little bit. So you can think of like bringing your belly button into your spine, and that kind of changes. If if you've ever done ballet, like it's kind of a ballet stance. But when you bring your belly button into your spine, you tend to roll your chest in. So you have to intentionally lift your chest. And I see this almost every single time, even with experienced self muscle testers. They don't lift their chest enough. So you have to really like record yourself doing it and look and see what you look like on camera. And you also, if you're somebody who feels like you don't sway or your sway is like not very noticeable, recording yourself is invaluable. Like you probably are swaying. It just might not be as bossy as like my sway. So you're going to lift your chest, relax your shoulders back and down. You want to almost like bring your chin back because again, a lot of people have forward head posture. So you want to be aware that like there's this bony process in the back of your head. You want to feel like somebody's just grabbed a hold of that and is like pulling it up kind of. So like from the crown of your head, a string attaching you to the ceiling. So I'm going to put the vial, this one's 171 in my hands, and we're going to see which way we sway. So for this, my intention is show me a forward sway for the thing I should take, for the thing that will be pro survival or healing, for me. So I got a backward sway. So now we're going to just make sure it's a real backward sway. We do our little kitty paws. We put it back in our hands. How crazy is the first one we do is actually. Let's find out. It's basically East Coast Lyme. This has actually been coming up for me, is that I need to start taking my Lyme herbs again. I stopped taking my little concoction that I take to keep my, Lyme and other things in check, but also I did get bitten by a tick.
Yeah.
About 3 months ago. And when I muscle tested the tick itself, it did have one of the B's, either Babesia, Borrelia, or Bartonella. One of the bad ones. It had one of the bad ones in it. And I was like, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So apparently we're at that bridge and we need to cross it.
Yep. Okay, great demonstration. I love it.
Yeah, how crazy. That was like the first thing I pull out.
Right? Okay, anything else we are missing for this like first episode of dipping our toes in? We don't want to overwhelm people too much because there's just so much here.
I know. I think we've hit like I think we've really hit the three main points home.
Yeah.
Although, should we demonstrate correlation?
I think we should have a whole episode on correlation because
Okay, all right, that's fair.
that one goes pretty deep into the weeds. But I think what we can do right now is like you guys are going to have questions, like for sure. Yeah. So put all of the questions on this episode, wherever you're watching it, YouTube, most likely, in the comments, and we will dig through those and we will be able to answer those for you. It's really hard for us to show you accurately in an Instagram video what we're doing. We get this comment that's like, I don't understand it. You kind of already talked about this in the beginning. Or people like kind of getting mad at us because it's not slow enough or whatever, but we can't demonstrate in 60 seconds accurately how we're doing something. So this longer form content,
slow it down enough. And longer form content, like in our courses, you have to practice, you have to watch the videos multiple times, you have to ask questions. It takes at least 8 weeks in my experience for a new muscle tester to feel like they're hitting a groove, like they even kind of know enough to be dangerous.
With a lot of practice, not just you watching the videos, of you actually doing it. Like that's a big difference.
Several times a day.
Yes. So, okay, yeah. So with that, put your questions, your comments, whatever you want to know, and we will start getting back to you on those. But we're excited. We're excited to be here. We're excited to share our journey and what we have created for the world
Mhm.
to see.
I love that we're leaving you guys on a cliffhanger because if you want to know about correlation, let us know and we'll do our best.
Okay, awesome. Well,
Yay!
have a good day and we'll see you next time.